Welcome to the Shifted podcast and video series. Each week we connect with teachers to hear their stories about teaching and learning during a global pandemic. We focus on shifting practices, digital tools and resources, health and wellness, maintaining balance, and supporting our students during these challenging times. The Shifted podcast is from the Greater Victoria School District in beautiful British Columbia, Canada, and is recorded on the unceded territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Hello everybody, this is a special bonus episode of the Shifted podcast and video series. We've recorded a few episodes with interesting educators from outside of the Greater Victoria School District, and we wanted to bring these to you in a special bonus format before the end of the 2021 school year. So, without further ado, we're pleased to present bonus episode number 1 with secondary English language arts educator Kyle McKillop from the Surrey School District. We hope you enjoyed the show. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Shifted podcast and video series. I'm John Hamlin. I work with the Greater Victoria School District here in beautiful Victoria, BC, home of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt Nation. This afternoon, we are bridging outside of our school district for the first time, but we're connecting with somebody that has a strong history with the Greater Victoria School District. Kyle McKillop is a secondary English language arts teacher from the Surrey School District, but he is an alumni of Reynolds Secondary, and his mother was a teacher in the ST61 for her career as well. So Kyle definitely has a strong connection back to our district. And a couple of years back, we brought him over to connect with some of our secondary English language arts teachers, and he did a workshop sharing some of his connections to new curriculum in the ELA, new media, and other different areas, and assessment in relation to the new secondary English language arts curriculum as well. So we're super pleased to be able to have another conversation with Kyle. And Kyle, it's great to have you back and great to talk to you again.
Yeah, I'm really glad to get to talk with you too. And just for the record, I'm coming to you from Surrey, which is the traditional unceded lands of the Katzie, the Tsawwassen, the Coquitlam, the Stolo, the Saanich, the Kwantlen, the Chemainus. They all shared this land that my school is on right here.
That's a lot to remember. So kudos to you for getting that right on the first try. There's no editing there. So before we started recording, we were chatting a little bit about the realities of this difficult year that we've been engaged with. Not only have we, been working through a global pandemic, we've been switching all of our ways of teaching and learning at secondary to a quarterly system from a semestered system. So in Surrey, where there's definitely the realities of COVID have been significantly different than the rest of the province. How's the year going for you, Kyle?
I think it's been a little bit wild, and I've been thinking a lot about what our principal says regularly, which is you focus on what you have control over and what you can influence, and you don't worry about the zones that you don't have control over. And that's been getting me through. I can focus on what I can do with my students. I can focus on how I work with my colleagues and how we collaborate. And I can focus on my own boundaries. Those things are helping me get through anyway. Although I'm still working on the boundaries one.
It's like booking an interview time with me after school after a long, grueling day. So you probably should have told me just to get lost. But I'm curious what the quarterly systems look like for you, because what we've been seeing here, it's a blessing and a curse all at the same time. You have this tremendous opportunity to rethink your practice, to rethink how you structure your lessons and whatnot. But you also there's a sense of pressure to now kind of double down on your time to squeeze your regular course into a much more compressed, shortened time frame. And I've seen, positive and negative manifestations of both of those ways of looking at things. So what's that been like for you? What's the reality in your classroom been like this year?
Well, when I narrow it down, when I put it in a calendar and see that I have 9 or 10 weeks, and really 8 or 9 weeks after I lose a week for conferencing at the end, I can't cover things to the same depth, or I have to make a choice there, basically. I either cover things to the same depth and do a smaller number of things, or I don't cover as much. I think I just said that same thing twice. This is
I'm with
Kyle. Yeah. So how it's worked out for my room is I've reduced the number of competencies that I'm working with, essentially. And I include other competencies as optional. Like if we're doing a response journal and students realize that they have covered a competency through the angle that they've chosen in a response journal, then we can self-assess, or I can assess it as well with them, and we can include it. But my focus is going to be on those core curricular competencies that I've narrowed things down to. It worked really well in our first 2 quarters. I was team teaching in a cross-curricular course. It was drama, socials, and English. And you can imagine 3 courses combined makes a giant curricular document. Our learning map, we allowed ourselves 3 or 4 competencies each. So we really reduced things to the absolute essentials, and found a lot of cross-curricular options there as well. So we included a section for that, but that gave me good practice for being out on my own, not collaborating in the same way, teaching courses by myself. I shrink it down and make it work. It also makes it more approachable for kids. Talking about 20 skills is a lot of skills for kids to track too. Talking about 10, 12, 15 skills, it's a little more approachable for them.
Yeah, being able to makes it a little more tangible. And I guess, when you're going through that process of paring it down to whatever you determine are those essential competencies, are you doing that like individually, or are you doing that collectively within your department, in your school? Are you all on the same page with that, or is it, kind of each up to their own?
Yeah, we left it each up to our own. Our department focus this year was what's the most effective way of getting students engaged with their learning. So all our conversations have centered on that, with the understanding that we know we're going to get the same kids next year. We know that they're not going to get the same coverage, but we also don't really believe in that idea of a learning gap. We know who our kids are, and we know that whenever they come to us, we're going to figure out what their needs are and work from there. That's part of our universal design, right? So for us to get on the same page can be useful, but it also would have taken away from a really important conversation for us, which is we've got all these kids going online who are struggling with engagement. We need to bring them in. And that actually has opened the door for us exploring gaming in our classrooms, social justice, just inquiry units. The learning for us was much richer that way, rather than focusing all our conversations on which competencies we're going to cover. Yeah, we just went another direction with what we focused on.
Right. It makes it less of a checklist type of operation in that sense as well.
True, and you just don't know who you're going to get. So some kids might need something entirely different, right? And we, as a department, pretty firmly believe in our own ability to meet learners authentically where they're at, and to build them to the next level. So we have to have freedom to do that, man.
So on the note of that freedom, and you're sort of encapsulating the essence of the structure of the new curriculum in a sense too, is that really by having less prescription, you have in fact more freedom and flexibility to meet students where they're at, the way you just described that so nicely. To those folks that might feel, and I still meet people like this all the time, that feel overwhelmed by that lack of prescription, that are more comfortable in a place where it's like, here's what you have to cover and here's the outcomes and what you need to do. What would your response be to somebody looking for something more prescriptive?
I think then you'll have those conversations with your department and see what people are thinking about. I think it's hard to operate in a vacuum anyway. And if that's where you're at and where your colleagues are at, and certainly in a pandemic where we're all craving some structure or some of what we've known, it's certainly not going to hurt you to figure out what your checklist is. It might help you design. It might help you do your backwards design even. It's just that for me, moving away from that prescriptive structure gave me space to let students make more choice. And I found when I let them make some choices, even if they make choices that are what we've been calling the illusion of choice, where, hey, we got this great thing. You can do this or this. Which one do you want to do? Uh, when you put power in their hands, their self-efficacy increases, their ability to advocate for themselves increases, their interest increases, and the payoff for you increases. And I don't know, I'd rather be in a room of happy people who are exploring things that they want to explore, and they're in control of their own self and their own assessment. I think when they want to be there, my life's better, right?
Yeah,
And
it really is a win-win for everybody when it's,
yeah,
going smoothly. When it comes to the students' involvement in your practice or in your assessment practice, what role do they play in co-constructing criteria, or what way? And you mentioned self-assessment earlier, but from that sense, and how do you position students within the conversation around assessment in your class?
we were doing it today, even this afternoon with spoken language 10. We looked at the learning map together. My learning map, the first draft is just the competencies. I've resorted them. I'm trying to remember the name of the document. I think it's Frameworks for Assessment that the ministry published, and they suggested resorting. And so I'm an English teacher, so there's a section for make, which is our writing competencies, a section for understand, section for analyze, a section for communicate and recognize at the end. So I just shuffle them, which having smaller chunks makes it more approachable for kids too. And today we spent probably half an hour with different groups taking on a different section and translating it with the goal of making it simple enough that they could use it to explain it to a younger sibling. Once we got it to that stage, we share out and we talk about whether it's working or not. And as soon as we had that final language for this class, it was a blended class, so I actually have to do the same thing with another third of the class tomorrow, but we'll keep working through it. So as soon as we finished that process, I plucked out competencies. We're doing response journals today as well. So it said, which competencies actually are relevant to response journals? Okay, so it's not about writing, it's about our thinking. So we're going to look at, making connections, that's a good one. In the analyze section, there's the thinking critically. So we took that and plugged it into a single point rubric. And then we talked about, okay, well, making connections, we just looked at examples of response journals. What did the proficient one look like? And we said, okay, well, it talked about the original text, talked about what they thought about. Okay, so we put those in as criteria. So they have not built the original set of competencies, but they have reworded them. So they know all the competencies already. They have already applied them in day 2 to a skill set, and they are thinking about what the criteria is for that. So day 2, they are already comfortable with our language that we're using and with how we'll structure it, which I think is pretty good for a blended class. I'm pretty happy with that start anyway.
Yeah, it's you're 2 days into quarter 4, so I think that's a win.
Yeah.
And it's I like the personalization piece there too. Putting your own spin on it, making that personal connection, and eventually you said being able to articulate that to a younger sibling. Then there's that transfer piece there too. I think it's a really great strategy. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, we were using it in quarter 1 and 2 as well. So my colleagues, Kissy Jemmett and Manveer Mander, we had an ongoing project. The goal was for our students to explain colonization to a younger audience. So I stole their thinking and applied it to this.
Awesome. So in terms of your work as an English teacher, since the time that I've known you, you've gone from being the president of the Surrey LSA, the Secondary English Language Arts Teachers Association in Surrey, to now being the president of BCTELA, the BC Teachers of English Language Arts, which are all connections to the BCTF now, the BCTELA being a specialist association. And as I was the past president of QBC, so I certainly know how powerful those organizations can be for a teacher to connect to expand their connections provincially. And it was probably the most powerful professional development experience of my career, and still has benefited me to this day. And I'm curious about the role that those two organizations have played, not only in your own profession, but within the Surrey secondary English language arts teachers, what role do especially the local, the LSA, what role has that played in supporting new curriculum in Surrey?
Yeah, well, all year I've been talking to my colleagues in our department about who is your team that's getting you through this, because you can't get through massive change alone and keep your sanity. Yeah. And for years in my own practice, I've been reinventing constantly, and my crew for getting through that was the Surrey English Teachers Association. We were meeting up monthly, sometimes 3 times a month, running different events. And even if you get to unpack with somebody briefly a little piece of your practice, a little piece of their practice, that cross-pollination just sets off creative sparks for you. And once that happens, then you can always ask somebody else for models, because you're exchanging things on a professional level. They're more open to sharing what they've made with you if they know it's coming back to them as well. Yeah, I think of my work with Kasha Duff. She's a vice principal in Surrey now, but when she was an English teacher, we decided that we're both doing similar things with assessment, and we wanted to do a presentation for a BCTELA, because we had never presented and we wanted to really go and be part of it. And we sat down and we started comparing things, and we taught at different schools. We'd see each other once a month, but when we sat down and we were looking through each other's stuff, like, oh, I want to use that. Okay, and I want to structure mine that way. I like the way you do single point rubrics. And we had a great time doing that exchange, right? And it wasn't possible without us both opening our practice to each other and having the willingness to share and the willingness to be vulnerable. So that's really what the Surrey English Teachers for years has been doing for me. It's given me a chance to be vulnerable with other people and talk to people who care deeply, deeply about their practice. And people are willing to push you forward, even if it's with even if it's with a emailed rubric, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to encapsulate it. And you know, it really expands your connections beyond your school. And you know, I've heard from folks that say, oh, you know, well, in our department we don't do it like that, or we don't do this type of thing. And I said, well, are you bound by the rules of your department, or are you you know, an educator with your own personal autonomy to make decisions? But you know, unless you have that network of people that can reinforce that decision and support that, and you know, you don't always want to feel like you're paddling upstream, right? So being able to go beyond what's in your school sometimes is the key to any kind of transformational practice in your career.
Yeah, in an English classroom, we're teaching kids how to disagree with grace, and I don't see there's any reason why we can't disagree with grace in our departments too. Much of my department has been experimenting with gradeless assessment, but not everybody, because not everybody is pursuing the same professional development interests, right? Some of us are diving into inquiry, into gaming, like I said. There's so many focuses, and we can all support each other and share, but you don't have to be identical. I don't think cookie cutter is equitable or even practical for most of us.
Yeah, that's right. You know, on another note, you know, I reached out to you a little while ago, and you know, it might be a bit of a funny conversation for 2 Caucasian guys to talk about racism in literature, but it also could be, you know, an interesting spark. And you know, the lens that we have on racism in 2021 is very different than we had 5, 10, 20 years ago, certainly. And there's certain texts that have been coming up more frequently, at least in our district, and the one that comes to mind is To Kill a Mockingbird, where there's, you know, some racist language that's used in that book. And for a lot of folks, it's been maintained as a hallmark of North American literature, and you know, almost like an essential reading that is anti-racist, or at least that's how it's been framed. And you know, if you do a little digging, you can find a multitude of different perspectives that can support either argument. So I'm curious a little bit more about, you know, as an English teacher, to what level are you considering things like that in your own work? And if you've been privy to any conversations within your district or provincially around topics like this?
Yeah, not so much provincially and not even across my district, but we talked about this quite a bit at our school. Yeah, and I am a white guy, and I have to remember that my whiteness is an ethnicity. It brings culture with it, and my culture is not the only culture, right? So when I read that book, that's not the mindset I had. The mindset was, wow, this is an amazing book. It's so beautiful and moving. And my wife, who is not white, she's black. She's from from the Caribbean, and moved to Canada, I guess, 8 years ago. She read it probably 4 or 5 years ago. I said, yeah, you should read it. I think you'll really enjoy it. And she said, when she finished, I don't get it. I don't understand. And sometimes I need those moments where I have somebody else's perspective to get there. But her issue with it was a book for white people. It was a book written with a white protagonist in a white savior mentality. And the black person was still othered in the book. And that opened up a door for me to see a lot of other texts. I'm sorry my wife had to go through that to get me there, but it opened up my eyes on our book room. So we have been going through a deep examination of what we should be doing at our school. And our school is majority Indo-Canadian, South Asian, I should say. And I would say probably 60% of Indian descent, another 10 to 20% Fijian, or I'd say 10% Fijian, another 10% Filipino. What books am I using in my classroom that can represent them? We have a small Black student population here. How are they represented in text? And why are our texts so focused on tradition when tradition is problematic? So part of what we've been doing then as a department is talking about those. Generally, we're on the same page there. We have decided to move from English Studies 12, which is kind of the traditional course in the new curriculum, and we're going to start teaching English First Peoples 12 instead in the autumn. So there is no more choice. There wasn't any choice already, because really everybody signed up for English Studies 12. They are uncertain about tackling a course for which they have no familiarity. But we've already done, I think, 3 or 4 trial runs for the course, and each time kids come through and are deeply moved, not because they're centered in the text, but because relevant issues are centered in the text. Some of them are centered in the text, so we have Indigenous students here, obviously. But they see somebody else's worldview, and it's really powerful and poignant for them to realize that they have a role to play in something like reconciliation. Which is a very long answer to say, yeah, we're having those conversations, but the idea is that we centered on the student's experience rather than on our love for literature and the literature of our youth.
That sums it up really nicely. You know, it's really about what that student experience is, and having them represented within all parts of our learning environments here in our schools. And I think that's really a key aspect of inclusive teaching practice. So
you want a book to speak to a student's like moment in time too. And I offered my students a choice between To Kill a Mockingbird. Well, there's many options in this grade 10 lit circle, but To Kill a Mockingbird or The Hate U Give. And I think you can guess which one the entire class was trying to choose. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, I bet.
It's an exciting book. And I mean, today we just found out Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder for killing George Floyd.
Yeah,
it's speaks to our.
Yeah, indeed. And that certainly, it resonates on a deeper level when these things are happening in the world all around us today.
Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, what's the rest of the year looking like in Surrey for you? Are you guys going back? What are you doing for grad? Are you guys doing virtual ceremonies, things like that? Or
last year, our vice principal, Ed Zhao, he managed to get kind of a Congo line of graduation ceremony going through our gymnasium. So we managed to get all the numbers within and work it all out. And this year, it sounds like they're going to go to the courtyard and maybe bring in a little bit more, a few more people, but still staying within the limits and hoping for the best. We have been hard hit here, so we're just hoping we get to stay at school as long as it's safe and see what happens.
The next few months are going to be very interesting to see how things go. That's for sure. I'm going to link to your teaching website in the notes for the episode. So if anybody wants to check out some of the rubrics and different resources that you have, I know you have them all linked and shared on there. And I'll link to BCTELA as well. Do you have any little plugs for next year for the conference? Will it be another virtual event, do you think?
Absolutely. We're definitely going to be virtual. We know that's the safest route for us for now. So also, we found out that when we go virtual, even more people come. We were delighted with how many people came, and we're hoping we can find some options for a little more crosstalk instead of lecture format. But yeah, you should, if you are interested in English language arts, you should come to BCTELA. It is the highlight of every year. It's such a warm community, and you get to feel part of anything. If you make it to there, come see me and say hi. I would love to meet you and talk about assessment.
Awesome. Well, I'd highly recommend it. I would tell every English teacher I meet, join your colleagues and in a provincial scale, and your mind will be blown by what you pick up at these events. So
or start an LSA. Start an LSA and talk with somebody in a neighboring school about something. You deserve that community. Why not build it yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, awesome. Any closing thoughts or comments?
No, just thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it, John. It's great to see you.
It's you too. It's really a pleasure chatting, Kyle. Thanks so much.
Okay, take care. I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Thank you for watching or listening to the show. You can find all of our episodes, leave us a voice message, or send us any questions or comments at our website, shift-ed.ca. Until next time, take care.